for coming for this event. We are now getting close to the end of the program. We now begin to talk, what next? What do we do after we leave here? How do we move this from talking to action? What can we individually do when we get back home, to organizations, to begin to mobilize the coalitions that we will need and the constraints that we need to begin to push for innovation on the continent. There's a need to move beyond managing poverty. We have to begin to see how we can transform our economies and transform our societies on the continent. This session is 1 hour. Hopefully we can cut the time short. We'll be presenting our own instruments, what we at IHABA, myself and my good partner, Mr. Jose Brito, or Ambassador Jose Brito, what we've decided and committed to doing moving forward. And also, we are lucky to have ADB on our side. It's the biggest African banking institution. They are also presenting what they've committed to doing to move the continent forward. So we'll be making a presentation on Africa 50. We'll be making a presentation on Seize Africa. ADB is very big, so when you hear the amount they're talking about, it's very big. But when you hear the amount we are talking about, it's very, very small. But we believe that if everybody can lead from their own little corners, if you can't do your own little things in your own corner, by the time all of us do our own little things, we can get to where we are going to. And what we are going to, the idea is to begin to see a change. We are not going to transform our economies or continent overnight. It will take generations. But to get there, we have to begin to work. We have to start to work now. I think the time for talking, we cannot say it's over, because we always need to talk. But we have to combine talking with action. And that's why one of the reasons we call this summit. We call it a People's Summit. You don't see many states here. We are trying to see how we can mobilize, using our network and all our friends' network, to see how we can begin to make impact. So the first presentation will be by Lucy. Lucy is assisting us on some of the activities. We have a lot of volunteers. Some we pay little money, some we don't pay at all, but they believe in the cause. She's one of those who believe in the cause and assisting us. So she's going to talk about Seize Africa, what are our plans for this summit and the other activities that we are planning to take this forward. Thank you very much. Lucy.
Hi, everyone. Boa tarde a todos. I'm Cape Verdean, but I'll be speaking in English. And firstly, I want to thank everyone for coming back from their lunch to listen to me, because I know that's sometimes hard. So thank you. So today I'm going to be presenting Seize Africa, which some of you may or may not have heard of, but it's a project that we've been working on in parallel with the Africa Innovation Summit. Excuse me. And as Jacob mentioned, the point is to do some small part after we're leaving here in order to ensure that everything that we're talking about, that we're actually working on making the changes that we see need to be made on the continent. Really quickly, we're going to go through the mission of Seize Africa and some of the organizations that we're working on, talk about the opportunity that we see and the specific challenge that we'd like to address. I'll give you guys a brief overview on Seize Africa, Square One, and K-Fund for Innovation, which we'll find out all about those in a bit, and briefly on their investment strategies, the team that we're hoping to build, and a really quick overview of the financials. So I'm actually part of the Cape Verdean diaspora, and I came back to Cape Verde because, unlike my parents who saw a lot of opportunity elsewhere in the world, when I looked back at Africa and at Cape Verde, I started seeing a lot of opportunity, and I think it's the case with many of the young people here and many of the people that you may know. And that's what these are about. They're about addressing the opportunity that is growing on the continent. What's Square One? Square One is an attempt, its mission is to provide superior returns to investors, yes, but to build the startup ecosystem that we've talked a lot about during these past couple of days that needs to be built in West Africa, close to us, but also in Greater Africa. And we want to use Square One to promote broad social change and some transformation through entrepreneurship and innovation. And very ambitiously, we'd also like to see it be the most referenced and the most competitive of accelerators here on African soil. And the K Fund for Innovation has a similar mission, promoting broad social change and transformation, et cetera, but it's going to do it from a different perspective on a slightly larger scale, getting investors bigger returns, but focusing on investing on companies that have the potential to be the next global company. So about the opportunity I was talking about, I mean, many of us we're aware of everything that's being said about Africa. The images at the top of the screen here, perhaps a few people in this room have lived through those things. People in my generation, many of us look back or look at those images and we see things that show how far we've come. And the magazines at the bottom of the page show Africa Rising, Aspiring Africa, and that's the word of the day. And the numbers show it. I mean, we've shown remarkable resilience throughout the financial crisis. We are the second fastest growing region in the world after East Asia. It's evident that business environments and transparency are improving all over the continent, and we have a huge GDP, $2 trillion, that's only projected to continue growing. And further, the IMF is forecasting that over the course of the next couple of years, by 2017, 11 of the fastest growing countries on the planet will be based on our soils, will be our countries. We also have the fastest growing consumer market on the planet. And while many people argue, and it's true that much of the growth in Africa is in extractive industries or in non-value-add industries, it's also true that a third of that growth is coming from consumer-facing industries, which presents a huge opportunity for us because we have the fastest growing consumer market on the planet. Demographic changes also present an important opportunity. A lot of those consumers are moving to urban centers, and if you take a look at the graph on the right, you know, the closest region to us, Asia, is not very close at all in terms of the rate of change of urban population. We're also wealthier. There's a growing level of discretionary capital, a nascent and growing middle class, although I'm sure we would all admit we have a long ways to go, but 34% and growing, that's a good number. Projections also suggest that by 2020, we're going to have consumer industries that are about $1 trillion greater than they are today. And that's certainly an opportunity we'd like to take advantage of. I'm sure many of us would also agree that Africa as a whole is increasingly globally connected and is increasingly attracting sort of outside of attention. Foreign direct investment continues to grow. African countries right now, Cape Verde is one of the middle-income countries per se, but it's projected that by 2025, almost 75% of all countries in Africa will be middle-income countries, and that's a lot of us Africans. So we have all of these increasing ties to the global economy. All of these companies are investing increasing amounts of money in keeping us connected to the world through investments in wireless companies and in telecom infrastructure. And we Africans, we've shown that we're pretty open to adopting technologies, and we have a very high technology adoption rate. The number of cell phones, for example, or smartphones in Africa is expected to double over the next 4 years. And then there's the Africans. You know, we're also an exciting opportunity, not only for foreigners, we're an exciting opportunity for ourselves. We're 1/7 of the planet's population. We're the youngest population on the planet. Many of us by 2050 will be less than 24 years old. We're increasingly educated. We're increasingly connected to the outside world. And if this conference is any evidence, then we're also increasingly entrepreneurial in nature, and we want to promote innovation on the continent. There's also this growing trend of African firms that are going global. It's a trend that Exceeds Africa would like to see continue to grow, and as we see MTN and Dangote and Saab Miller sort of take their businesses global, what we'd like to ask and what we're wondering is, which one of us in this room is going to take the next African company global, and how can we help? And then this is probably very important and interesting to the investors in the room. The fact is that investments in Africa, even when they're small, they tend to have a really interesting and very high return compared to similar investments in other regions. A recent report from the McKinsey Global Initiative said, global executives and investors cannot afford to ignore the continent's immense potential. Today, the rate of return on foreign investment in Africa is higher than in any other developing region. So if global executives and investors can't afford to ignore that, I'm sure that we would all agree that certainly we cannot afford to ignore that. But of course, it's not all fun and games. We do have some challenges, and one of the challenges that has been talked about all through this morning is access to capital for these entrepreneurs who want to found that next global company or found that startup that in 10 years might be a global company. And we continue to have some financial markets that are not necessarily conducive to that because they're very underdeveloped. On average, SMEs also tend to need much more financing than microfinance can afford to give them, and much less than global banks, for example, are willing to consider. Cape Verde, I think you could count the number of investments that have been made by the IFC, for example, in the palm of your hand, because there's just not the scale necessary to attract that. In terms of the FDI we talked about, it's also mostly, as we said, being directed towards infrastructure and extractive companies, and many of them are not focused at SMEs, which we care about. So what happens is many entrepreneurs end up financing with their own funds, but that's simply not scalable, and it's extremely limiting. So we end up with a lot of entrepreneurs, people that you and I know, that end up in a no man's land. They have nowhere to go to get their SMEs or their small companies or their startups to go from an idea to the market. And that's the gap that we'd like to address with Exceeds Africa and its innovations. Now, just a quick survey of the audience to get a sense of perspective here. How many of you would say that there are more challenges than opportunities in Africa? And then I'll ask, how many would believe the opposite, that there are more opportunities than challenges? So how many more challenges than opportunities? That's very good, more opportunities than challenges. 2 hands over here. Okay, that's good to see. So we're on the right track. We believe that too with Exceeds Africa. Exceeds Africa is planning to launch the Square One, this accelerator, and the K Fund for Innovation, and already runs the Africa Innovation Summit, which is going to be run biannually. It's a company based here in Cape Verde. Mr. Brito and Jacob are at the forefront of it, and as he said, it's a cause that I think is really interesting and wanted to support. So Square One is going to be an accelerator that's going to finance the missing middle and target the entrepreneurs that we're talking about, the smaller guys that can't really reach for this larger financing, but they have innovative and important ideas that are important for the transformation of the continent. We also want to use Square One as an attempt to sort of attack this perception that many people have that investments in Africa don't necessarily have the returns that other regions have. And the K Fund for Innovation will do similarly, but it will focus on SMEs and startups as opposed to ideas like the accelerator. And it's going to focus on SMEs that are interested in using science and technology to solve some of the problems that we've talked about throughout the last couple of days at the summit. The global investment strategy for Square One is really based on partnerships. So we want to use an incubator network across the continent, other accelerators, and events like this one all across the continent to create a really regular and high-quality deal flow. And the goal is to invest over 10 companies each year. And we hope this is the the actual amount of money to be raised is $1.8 million. That's a slide mistake. Apologies. And to invest $1.8 million across those 30 companies in 3 years. So let me draw your attention to the right side of the screen really quickly. This is the network of incubators and sort of workspaces that exist across the continent right now. Many of these belong to what is called the AfriLabs network. The plan is to sort of leverage that incubator network so that you have this constant contact with entrepreneurs and with young innovators. We also don't want to do this alone. We don't think that that's the appropriate strategy. So building partnerships with other accelerators and ensuring that we have partners that can cross-invest and that can offer opportunities for follow-on financing is very important. So, and the final thing is targeting events like this, like the Startup Open, the Android Hacking Challenge, the African Innovation Prize. We want to not only use those events, but also promote increasing numbers of events that are similar in nature. So the investment strategy is industry agnostic. It'll go across what we identify as high growth industries, green tech, healthcare, media and entertainment, et cetera. And from those, we'll choose about 50 per year that will go through a rigorous questioning process, so shall we call it. We'll ask about the market size. We'll explore what the trends are for their evolution on the continent and elsewhere. We'll primarily ask if the idea that the entrepreneur has is in any way transformational or revolutionary. From those 50, we'll come up with sort of 10 prototype ideas that are going to be invited to participate in the accelerator program based here in Praia, Cape Verde. And each of those companies is going to receive $25,000 US in exchange for a 12% equity stake. And then they're going to go through a 5-month process in which we'd like for them to go through about 2 years worth of progress in those 5 months. It's going to involve a lot of mentoring, a lot of consulting, and a lot of help fundraising and getting additional funds if they need to. I don't think we're getting a response. Okay, and then what's the differential? What is Square One going to bring to these entrepreneurs? So the basic thing is we're going to try to provide for them world-class mentoring, a really, really strong network based here and elsewhere in Africa, and a shared workspace here in Cape Verde where they can sort of build their team and start building a product and strategy. Well, we're also going to have a really heavy focus on training. So the core Square One training will cover everything that they need to know about business that they can learn in a classroom. And it'll be complemented by taking advantage of online courses and other tools that might be useful to them. And most importantly, we'll try to create an environment of healthy and friendly competition that can help all of the teams sort of gain insight into other teams' products, into their products, and into their business strategy that might be a value add to them. In terms of the global investment strategy for the K Fund, the idea is to sort of have some of these companies follow through from the initial search process through the accelerator and into the K Fund for Innovation. But here we want to focus on what will already be SMEs with really high opportunities for growth and that are specifically doing something that we would call innovative in order to solve some problem on the African continent. We'll focus only on 5 investments per year in this case, and the idea is to raise $20 million to raise over an initial 3 years across those 15 companies. And here we'll have an even stronger on teams, whereas in the accelerator, we'll be helping them build their team. In the K Fund, we'll look for teams that already have some strong track record of success. Okay, and we have a similar investment strategy here, a couple of different questions though. So what we'll be asking is it a new service? Is it combining existing technology to provide something different? Is it attracting a customer in a very new way? Is it using some energy-saving method to create a new product? What does the market look like as well? And once we have answers to those questions, we'll take those 5 firms. They'll become part of the portfolio of the K Fund, and we'll start with an initial investment of $200,000, and there's potential for additional follow-on financing of up to $2 million US, but not for all of the firms, obviously. We have $20 million to invest. The most promising will receive up to $2 million. And each investment will be 3 to 5 years long. All exit strategies or potential exit strategies will be identified before the investment is approved. These firms will also have access to mentoring, to consulting. We'll have a very close relationship with their management team. And we're hoping that we can use the existing network in Exceeds Africa to really get these entrepreneurs access to high-level policymakers, high-level business leaders, anyone that can sort of enhance their network and make it easier for them to take their small SME to a global company. And very quickly, in the end, we're talking about people here. So through the accelerator and through the K Fund, there's going to be an extremely high focus on the founding teams, particularly in the accelerator, where we're going to be helping them sort of develop the team. And what we're going to be asking is, does this team include builders, or are they just business people? If not, how can we get a builder onto the team? How can we get a developer onto the team? Have they created anything before? Similarly, we're going to have, I think, a very good focus on the soft part of these teams as well. We don't want just very highly qualified, high-performing teams. We want people that are going to be determined to make their companies succeed, that are going to have a strong vision for their company, but that are also going to be open to the criticism that they're inevitably going to get from the process. And also people that will be open to coming back and giving back to the alumni network that we're hoping to create. So are they going to come back as mentors and trainers? So we want to ensure that they're going to be willing to come back. And for the K Fund specifically, we're looking for founding teams that have worked together, they have a track record of making things work and succeeding with them, and that are people that sort of can invent smarter ways to do old things perhaps, either tweaks or ruptures. We don't care. We just want to see innovation and an attempt to change the status quo in any given sector. So very quickly on the financials, it's a brief review. For the Square One, again, we're raising $1.8 million, funding 30 companies over 3 years. We're hoping to source from about 150 incubated. The operating costs are going to be shared with the K Fund so that we can ensure that as much of the money as we raise goes into actually supporting these companies. And for the K Fund, it's 15 companies over 3 to 5 years. We'll be investing up to between $200K to $2 million in each of these and sharing the costs with Square One. I know that these are not really large numbers when we talk about $1.8 million or $20 million. In the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge amount, but as Jacob mentioned earlier, we have this huge problem on our hands. This is a small contribution to that problem. This is what we can do right now, and we'd like to see that get off the ground and make an impact. And our question is, which one of you in this room can join us as entrepreneurs or as investors? We'd like to have your help in making even this small impact or any other one that you think is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. We have Steve come and talk now about ADB.
Okay.
Steve.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Jacob. I must say that I'm extremely happy to be here. And I wanted to begin by saying, Your Excellencies, but I'm not so sure that there are any left. So maybe I should nevertheless say Your Excellencies, because all of you have stayed here and gone through the whole process, so you qualify as Excellencies. Now, I'm extremely happy. This is my first time to come to Cape Verde, a country that I've obviously heard quite a lot about. And you call your country petit pays, a small country. And that reminds me of a saying back home in my country, Uganda. It says that you can call a small chief names if he is on the other side of the river, okay? So when he's on the other side of the river, say that small chief there, oh, but if he's on your side of the river, you have to pay lots of respect. And since I came here, even my respect for this country has quite increased. I really commend you for the things you've been able to do, although at one time, not long ago, the UN itself said that you are just a bunch of rocks in the Atlantic. But what powerful bunch of rocks you have proven to be. One of the very first countries in Africa to emerge from being among the poorest, now to emerge and become among the middle-income economies, and with all the things that Lucy has presented and the support of Jacob and Jose, I'm very sure that the sky is going to be the limit. Now, in the name of, thank you again, thank you. In the name of full disclosure, I first met Jacob here almost 20 years ago in the city of Abidjan. Even at that time, he was working still with Jose Brito, and they were working on Africa's futures. So these are people who have had Africa's future in their very DNA. So that has to be. And I thank you so much for what you have done here. And we at the ADB are extremely proud to have been part of your financing strategy for this very wonderful conference. Okay, so Lucy, I'm very happy about what you presented. I have one small criticism, though, is that you presented IMF data instead of saying the ADB says this. So maybe, because we are actually saying the same thing, more or less, and since we go around much more than the IMF, we probably know better. Definitely, you're right. There are many more countries today that are showing higher growth rates than ever before. But also the highest growing African countries happen to be the 11 highest growing countries in the world happen to be from our continent and also this region. All right. So now, why am I here? I must also again disclose fully that this project I'm presenting on behalf of my colleague Tas Avenpool, who is the new director of the Business Development Department. And as always at the ADB, we're thinking about the big idea. What is the big idea that would not only be big, but also be name-changing for the citizens of the continent, but also for their countries, in terms of prestige, in terms of our standing in the world. And so, in the last couple of years, we came up with this idea of Africa 50. One of the big champions of this has, of course, been our president, Donald Kaberuka. So, as you know, our president might be leaving in the next 1.5 years. So a lot of people think that actually this is one of his legacies among the many that has been able to put down on during his tenure of office. Okay. So, what was the point of departure for our thinking of Africa 50? If you consider where we are today in Africa, Africa needs financing. Now it's going to be infrastructure mainly. It needs financing for infrastructure of up to $100 billion US. Now, actual investment, which comes from governments, some rich, some poor, and also from institutions like ours and the World Bank, can only cover 50% of that demand. And with all the growth that is happening and all the movements that's happening, the gap is growing. Some people think exponentially. So, why isn't it happening? What is holding us back? Why isn't the money flowing? If Africa is growing at what we say is growing, and all these countries are being richer every day, becoming richer and richer and more affluent every day, why isn't it happening? It's because the kind of things that we need to do, the mega projects, demand mega resources. The institutions like ours, Jacob, you said, we are very, very big, but actually not big enough for the needs that we have in Africa today. The World Bank is not big enough. Moreover, some of the countries funding us from Europe, from America, from Japan, are having, as you know, serious constraints of their own. So, we need to do something different. The business models that we have today are not working, and so we have to think, if you want, out of the box. So, what needs to be done? What we need to do is establish a new vehicle that has a slightly different DNA from the ones we have been used to in the past. Aid-based, public sector-based. We need to change that. And moreover, we also want an initiative that doesn't come, with all due respect, I used to work in Washington, D.C. with some of the institutions there, but we have to have an African initiative. It has to be credible, it has to be apolitical, and it has to be flexible, it has to be efficient, and has to be commercial. So these are all changes that we think will be incorporated in this new DNA that we are very much trying to put to work. So in other words, we need not only a very comprehensive approach, but also need an approach that does things that have never been done before. I will give you very quickly some of the examples. Inga, that is damming part of the Congo River, could generate up to 50,000 megawatts. And that is huge. That is game-changing. That is not small potatoes, as people say. It will change a whole continent. In fact, there is some thinking that when Africans are sleeping, we could export some of that power to Europe from Inga. It could power the whole of Southern Africa. So that is big. Equally big is the Abidjan-Dakar highway, for example, connecting very countries that are very dynamic. What about the Dar es Salaam-Kigali railway line, opening up the hinterland that has been closed for thousands of years, and so on and so forth. There are very many things that we can do. We can do that as well. That looks very nice indeed. Bits of it are being done in Morocco. It could happen in many other places. So, I'll tell you a bit about the kind of funding structure that we have put in place. Obviously, we are the ones fronting this. We're providing the lead. So the African Development Bank, African countries themselves, and African institutional investors, for example, the insurance companies and so on, will be the ones that will purchase equity in this instrument. But at the same time, there will be means of funding other ways through bonds by appealing to our global partners of different types and of course, launching products in different capital markets around the world. We do that already with a whole lot of our products that we have at the bank, and so we do have the experience of how this can be done. At the same time, we can use some of the funds in a revolving project kind of where consortia can come in and do certain things with us in a form of leveraging. Okay, so as the Chinese say, while our ambition is huge and the journey is very long, they say that even the longest journey begins with the first step. Exactly what Lucy was saying. We begin somewhere and build on that. So we are not going to start with 100 billion. That's where we want to go, but we need to start with something that we can provide the first step on a long journey. So we are thinking of paid-in capital, as illustrated before, of about 3 billion. And this, we hope, will then, on its own, leverage another 10 billion. We do feel, very importantly, that one of the constraints of these kind of ideas is that you can put them together, but at the end of the day, you don't have the pipeline in terms of projects. So part of this big program and ambitious program will be to have an arm that does nothing else but develop projects, pipelines, so that you have a pipeline. Because just thinking about an idea is not good enough. You need to cost it, you need to have the plans, and so on and so forth. So that's how we think will happen, and we hope that the whole vehicle will then be, with time, be able to deliver 100 billion US dollars in projects per year. Okay, so again, other aspects of that. The new entity, obviously, is being nurtured by the ADB, and we think is a very, very prestigious thing that we've done, but not beyond our competencies, definitely not. It will have power to leverage expertise from different parts of the continent, but also from abroad, from our partners abroad if required. It will have an independent governance structure and capital structure, which is aside from our own bank. And then, of course, as I said, it will have its own separate development vehicle, which will assist in developing the pipeline that we need. Oops, sorry. Yes. Okay. So now, those of you that might be doubting whether this can be done in a small way, if without those resources, it's being done. The idea of leveraging is very, very much alive at the bank. That's one example of the kind of things that we have done in Senegal in the past couple of years. Now we have 4 projects there. One is a port, which we have supported. The other is autoroute to Dakar, and I can't see the name there, but anyway, it's an autoroute from Dakar up to the countryside. And then we also have a coal plant, and we also have support to the airport. So in all, we've actually just put in euro 185 million, but as a result, and of course our own leverage and credibility has been able to bring in, to crowd in, if you want, 1.3 billion euro. Another example is okay, so again, that is more or less putting emphasis on the kind of things we can do. Another example is that of Kenya, where we have done the Turkana power plant. It's a wind farm close to the one that I saw on our first trip around the country, around this island of Santiago a few days ago. We're also supporting the Thika power, and we're also doing, we are supporting the rail line from Mombasa, again, onto the countryside. Even here, we have invested 180 million, but the total realizable projects that have come in by other investors and so on, almost close to 1 billion euro. So again, that kind of crowding in of investment. Okay, so we have not only operated in the low-income countries, but we've also been in South Africa, one of the bigger players on the continent, as you know, and we have financed their investment powerhouse called Transnet, which is into transport and is also in communications and so of different types. Even there, our resources have been able to crowd in much, much bigger investments from other players in that country. Another example will be with respect to brain growth in Morocco, where again we are into wind power and solar programs, again using quite a smallish amount of our own resources, but then getting a whole lot of other players and investors on board and multiplying it. The multiplier effect, as you can see there, is quite huge. Okay, what about the implementation of this very ambitious program. We are going to launch it, preferably at our annual meetings, going to be held in Kigali for this year. We discussed it to a large extent at the meetings that we had in Morocco last year. We again have had serious discussions of the way forward this past June in Tunis, and so on. So this is an instrument that has been found credible, that is ready to take off. We, even as an aside, had a session at the NASDAQ Stock Exchange in New York. So I think we are going places. Okay, so there we are. We are almost on takeoff. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite you to get. You don't even have to fasten your safety belts, because I think it's a very safe ride ahead. Thank you so much, and thank you for listening to me. Again, I'm very happy to be here in this great country and great capital city.
Good afternoon again. We're just about 7 minutes over the time. I think our lunch was a bit too long. Now we've had 2 presentations on some ideas on moving forward. If we have any questions, commentaries, we can take that for about 5 to 10 minutes before we move to the last section. Yes? Yes, go ahead. The microphone.
Yeah, it's okay. First, thanks for the presentation. My question is to FDB. How do you choose your partners in your partnerships for this special vehicle? And second, how do you choose the project you intend to enter in? Is it only public project? Do you intend to finance large private project too? Thanks.
Yes, Steve, you can take that.
Okay.
We can speak from there.
Are we on?
Yeah, you are on.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much for that interesting question. How do you choose the partners? As I had laid out, we are going to have investment from the bank itself, which is owned, by the way, by a number of member countries, all the 53. South Sudan is not yet a full-fledged member, but all the 53 countries in Africa have shares of the ADB. So you actually own that bank. So you are in a position, all these countries are in a position to take a stake in this new instrument. But we're also going to did you know, for example, that there's a lot of money in insurance companies, but there's also a lot of money in central banks. Central banks, balance of payments support, and balance of payments cover and all that is saved in American Treasury bills, a lot of it. And you know how much they get for it? They probably get 0.5% return. Why? Because, of course, American Treasury bills are very safe. But what we are saying is that the ADB, as of now and for the future, is going to be a very safe place to invest. Why? Because it's a AAA institution. By the way, America is not AAA. But anyway, so that aside, of course, America is very strong in other respects as well. But so there's a whole range of these institutions and governments that can invest potentially. Now, to answer your last question about whether it's going to be just public projects, no. Actually, the whole idea with this is a private kind of window. It's going to be investments in private windows, and it's going to be encouraging public and private partnerships. So it's going to be very different from the usual things that we do where the public sector takes on. It's going to be a whole range of actors being brought on board.
Thank you, Steve.
Right.
Yes? Yes, please.
Bom, eu vou fazer a minha pergunta em português, para o senhor do BAT também.
Okay.
Ele precisa colocar o...
Yeah. No, he's going to ask you a question. So put on your headphones. Okay. In the meantime, yes, yours. In the meantime, Sandro, can you please?
Yes. Again, my name is Sandro. I'm from Cape Verde. I've worked with ADB in some projects, being in the public sector, and also worked in some private sector ventures that were then financed by ADB. And from my experience, sometimes I see that, ADB procedure, it's a little bit difficult for the private sector. There's a lot of bureaucracy, there's a lot of due diligence, which required some time and initial investment from the private sector that is huge, just in the project development stage. You have to do, the feasibility studies, you have to do an environmental impact studies, you have a huge procedures that the environmental impact study has to be published for a certain period, and then, all those procedures that in many times you lose the opportunity to do the investments. And when it comes to the time that ADB is really going to put the money on the table, you might already have surpassed that opportunity in the sense. What are you doing in the context of this new venture, this African 50, to facilitate project development? And are you also putting facilities or procedures and processes that would facilitate more the way that ADB does business?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I see I'm being put on the corner right now. I don't quite know when you did business with ADB, because
sorry,
I think ADB...
Sandro used to be the director for planning for Cape Verde.
Is a director for planning?
Before.
So, I see. Okay. Thank you so much. Nice to know you. But anyway, going back to, I don't know when you did business with the ADB. I think the ADB has changed in a lot of respects in the last 10 years or so. So we are much faster back. But part of the reason why we are doing this is to be able to have an arm that responds a little more faster to the kind of needs that you're presenting. But I must say that things like environmental safeguards and so on could be done faster, but cannot be taken off the agenda. Because, I mean, if you have these private companies and they're coming, many of them, and they offer you all sorts of sweet things, but then pollute your environment, you're going to regret it 20 years down the road. So, yes, we could be faster, but I think a lot of measures must be in place, and they're very important to deliver a product which is sustainable and credible, and which is good for the country in terms of the environment, but in terms of growth as well.
Steve, please put on your microphone,
Yes, okay.
Your earphone,
All right.
so she can ask. Please.
Duas inquietações que podem tornar perguntas.
Two worries that may become two questions. You said that the countries that grow the more are the African countries, but in the meantime, when we read the last report of World Bank about employment in the world and OIT, we see the region of the sub-Saharan Africa, and all Africa is the region that produces more unemployed people, mainly for the youth. So I would like to ask you, what's failing? It's the educational system? If the growth opportunities are clear and strong, why is not that translated into jobs? That's employment. That's my first question. The second question concerns one of the slides you showed, and I was wondering, it's about opportunities and riches, growth and richness, because these opportunities that we have, are these opportunities for Africans, for native Africans? I see my country, Cape Verde, we are going to a privatization of major companies that belong to the state sector. Now they are in the private sector, but today I can tell you that we Cape Verdeans, we own almost nothing. We are talking about the cluster of tourism, but we will not be the owners of the big hotels. So I would like to ask you, are the opportunities in Africa for Africans, or are we about to see a new second colonization, the economic colonization? Are we preparing the country for foreign investment? Thank you.
Some responses, some of the questions might get me out of the country rather fast. So
no worries. It's a very democratic country. You can say anything you want to say.
But before I answer, I thought that I will give a chance to Lucy, because this is a question on which she was very eloquent about the possibilities, the opportunities on the African, and then I will add to that. What do you think?
Yes, go ahead.
As I talked a little bit, I mean, that's an important question, and it's part of the reason why the presentation that we made started with the opportunities and talked about the specific challenge that we have. And it noted that, yes, many of the countries in Africa are growing at a tremendous rate in terms of GDP. That's true, I can't deny that. But we also brought up the point that a lot of that growth and a lot of the investment that we're seeing is going to industries that don't necessarily translate into employment for people like me or people like you. They go into extractive industries, industrialization, yes, but what we really need to sort of attack is ensuring that not only foreign direct investment, but also African money, is creating businesses that are started by Africans and that are employing Africans as a means to target that. That was the reason why the accelerator and the fund, in this case, are so important, because the bank project are creating the infrastructures that we're not going to be able to do business efficiently without them, but we also need to focus on the 99% of the population that counts on SMEs for their employment on the African continent. So it's a combination of both solutions to attack that problem. It's creating the conditions and the infrastructure and ensuring that that's in place, and also ensuring that, you know, the little guy or people like you or me are able to have access to finance to take advantage of the opportunity that these infrastructures create.
Okay, Steve.
Okay, so let me just add a few points there. I definitely think that you have your hand on a very important point, the point of job creation for the youth. We, the African Development Bank, happens to have a temporary headquarters in Tunis, and so we were witnesses to the explosion of the youth. And what's so interesting, though, is that Tunis, compared to the rest of other countries, seems to be quite affluent. They have a functioning welfare state which provides education and health services, and this is a place that exploded. Why? It's because the young people felt excluded from the political process, but also from the economics as such. So it's very, very important as we move ahead, even as African countries are riding the natural resource boom, to be careful to make sure that it creates some degree of prosperity for the households. It has women are not excluded, young people are not excluded, and so on. So that's very, very important indeed, I think. And also, you say that these opportunities, in effect, not creating a second colonization of Africa. I might not want to agree with that, but I can also say that what really is happening in a lot of countries is that the state is very good at doing certain things. It's very good at providing social services, providing law and order. We don't want to privatize law and order because that could be a whole lot of problems and so on. But there are things like airlines, which there's no African country that even produces an ashtray, I don't know, in the airline. So you sit there, every single thing, including whiskey and so on, is actually imported. So sometimes you wonder whether that is also not owning that and having all these subsidies and people riding free and so on. In some countries, I know cases where a minister recalled a plane. The plane was taking 200 people somewhere and he was late and called the plane back. Now, you know that a plane just don't go and land at the same. So the plane came back and cycled 25 times around the airport in order to land and pick up the minister. These things happen. So one has to be careful. I do believe, sincerely, that it's time to rethink industrial policy. There was a time when the word industrial policy was an insult, but today it's very important. The Koreans and the Chinese have used industrial policy that is careful hand-holding by the state, of certain companies that are supposed to be leading in or comparative advantage, and getting them to create jobs and to reduce regional disparities and so on. So I definitely believe that there are certain things we need to do, but not necessarily owning things that can be better managed in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you very much for your questions. I think we end here because I can see our dignitaries are beginning to enter. We will be entering a new session, which is the closing session, before the official closing ceremony. In this session, I have a team that was working with me to prepare, was able to prepare a report. But as you can see, the last 2 or 3 days, we've been very busy running up and down. So we really did not prepare a report, but I drafted some of my good friends who have been attending to take notes. And from this note, I also drafted 2 other friends to prepare a PowerPoint slide, which I'm going to present. And if Steve and Lucy want, they can remain here, or they can go back to the audience. This is essentially the last section, what we call the call to action. As I said earlier on, we've been here now for 2.5 days, talking about Africa, talking about innovation, science, technology, and various things. The issue is, how do we move forward? What do we do from now on? Sorry, Lucy and Steve, I did not mean to move you out unceremoniously. It's just the issue of time. We have our honorables entering, for example, our patron, Honorable Pedro Piesh, the Honorable Commissioner from the AU, and I'm assuming the President will be coming very soon. So we need to find a way to wrap up. And I don't just want to wrap up by talking. I would like to engage the audience in the discussion. I have a series of slides to show. I will try to rush through them quickly and hopefully engage the audience that is here in the discussion. What do we do after? The day after, what next? From the slides, from the discussions over the last 2 days, what we could gather, where are these slides? Sorry, PowerPoint to the scooper. Slides. Prosper slides. Sorry. Okay, let me start. The notes that we've taken for the messages coming out of the... Okay, yeah, this is it. Thank you. Obrigado. Okay. The messages that we are getting, at least over the last 2 days, there's nothing radically new. Nothing radically new. It's some of the common sense that many of us have had before, or some of you had before. And what is coming out is that we have to begin to see innovation as a critical element of moving the continent forward. Innovation is key to tackling our social challenges. This is one of the core messages that we got from this summit so far. And it's key to any economic strategy we may want to have in the future. And I think, personally, I would say, really it is time to end trying to develop Africa by managing poverty. Poverty management is not going to get us anywhere. No country in the world or any region have developed because the leadership is essentially focused on managing poverty. There's a need for transformation, and we have to innovate. And as some of the discussions, especially from the plenary session yesterday, innovation is part of there's a tension that takes place, and it leads to disruption. And when there's disruption, there's resistance to change. I think Bright speaks very well of this. I did not have the opportunity to listen to his speech here, but he's spoken eloquently about who is afraid of innovation on the continent. And what can we do to ensure that those who are pro or those who are for have the upper hand? And so we have to find a way to manage this, the potential resistance to change on the continent. The system of innovation is not about inventions. What we begin to find in many African countries, that we find islands of excellence. We have individual companies or areas that are doing interesting and innovative things, but there's no connection to the wider economy, and there's no connection to the other sectors. And so that if we're going to move forward, we have to take a systemic approach to promoting innovation on the continent. We have to take a systemic approach. And this requires that the actors are communicating, talking to each other, relating, working together. The government cannot always be bad, and the private sector cannot always be good. We have to find a way to ensure that there's a platform, there's a forum in which people are meeting, discussing, and working out the differences, and to see how we can work together to move forward. As Sergeant Winslow, Dr. Sergeant Winslow said yesterday, I believe, in the US, there's a virtuous circle in which people pay taxes, the government takes the money to support research and development. Some of these go to the private sector, who will develop it further, produce goods to sell in the market. They also pay their taxes in this flow. But as our good friend Elman said, within the African continent, there's a break in this circle, from virtuous to become a vicious circle. How do we ensure that this break is mended in a way, so that we begin to work together, not as government alone, but as private sector alone, but even as communities, to see how do we collaborate to push the continent forward. One of the other messages which we found, at least from the notes, is that innovation is social and not only technological. But there's a tendency to think that innovation is only about science, it's only about technology. One of the best innovations I've come across in the continent over the last 5 years is the health reform policies in Uganda. Well, not in Uganda, in Rwanda, that President Kagame referred to here yesterday evening. In Rwanda today, every citizen has a national health card. So health care becomes a preventative medicine, not to cure diseases. It's a very different philosophy. When citizens can go to the doctor, when they feel they need to go to the doctor, or they go and do check-up to prevent diseases, than rushing to the emergency rooms after you are sick. So this is very important for us, that we have to begin to look at innovation, not just the hard science and technology, but also on the basic things that we are doing. How do we do it better? I think the Prime Minister said it on the first day, that innovation is about transformation. It's about changing the way we do things to make things better for us and for our societies. And another message which we got, which overall, is that many of our countries, we really do not have a functioning national innovation system. And that we have to find a way to develop this, to begin to nurture this in our countries. We have to get the basics right, which includes education. In many of our countries, despite the fact that there's a minority that are getting what I called the MIT or the first world education on the continent, majority are not. So we have to find a way to ensure that the educational system is not just pro, because it's more quality based. Okay, there's a need for quality in our educational systems. There's critical competencies that are missing, the issue of policy. So instead, we have to get the basics right. We have to ensure that although the resources are scarce, we have to find a way to ensure that the little that we have is managed properly and is invested properly, so that we can move our countries forward. The importance of experimentation and issue of learning and collaboration. We have to essentially do what the people do in Silicon Valley, celebrate failures. If we don't celebrate failures, people are afraid to experiment, because when you do something and you fail, and society begins to look at you, wow, it's a failure. People don't want to take risk, and this is critical. So this is part of the things we have to begin to change within our culture to ensure that we encourage people to do things, to take the risk that is needed to take at this stage of our development. One of the key messages that also we found from the discussions over the last 3 days is that, as I've said earlier, there is a need for collaboration. Everybody has to be engaged, from the communities to government, academia, industry, the private sector. Everybody has a role to play. And everybody has a critical role in this process of transformation that we have to engage in on the continent. The communities, we have to see how to make government do what they need to do. We cannot just leave government alone. We have to find a way to have influence on government. We have to use our networks to push them in the right. They are human beings. They're part of the citizenship. So we have to find a way to encourage them to do the right things. And academia have to be engaged. In our view, we have to get academics that are more passionate, much more activist in orientation. We're not just staying in my former life, stay in academia, writing papers and theorizing. But we have to go back to society and see what really can we do with our research to impact people's lives. This is critical if we're going to move the continent forward. And government, we have to find a way to do what President Kagame said, which is get the policies and the policy right. We have to do this. And importantly, we will need creative entrepreneurs to harness this to produce the next innovations and the next disruptive technologies that will change not only our continent, but the world. In terms of specific insights for the different communities of interest or stakeholders, there are some key bullet points that we have here on the screen. One is the political will. There's a need for an alignment of intent and action. President Kagame spoke well about this yesterday. The importance of the fact that we have to make strategic choices. We have to make smart choices. We need to find a way to, as I've said earlier, try to do experimentation with policy. We have to forget about this idea that there's a magic bullet somewhere and it's going to solve all our problems. Before it, I think in the 60s, was import substitution. By the 80s, it was surgical adjustment. By the 90s, it was PRSP. By the 2000s, it was MDGs. Where are we going next? What is the next acronym? And the reality is that our problems remain constant. So we need to find ways to make strategic choices, but we need to stop every decade or so shifting from one acronym to another acronym. And in this process, I think as we eloquently discussed over the past weekend, many of you were not here then, but some of you were here, with the NEPAD workshop on measuring indicators. It was very clear that we need evidence-based policy making. We need to collect indicators. We need to be able to find out what is going on in our countries. In many of our countries, which actually unable to count ourselves. We don't know how many people, how many citizens we have. These are critical issues. So we need to be able to put in place systems to collect data, to collect information, to understand what is happening within our country so we can make the right policies. And government has a critical role to play in this. There's a need for long-term vision. I've been working or linked to Cape Verde now for over a decade. And what has been, for me, what has been clear is that the leadership, whether from the period of independence or up until now, has have a consistent agenda on where they want to take their country. And that is why you can see the change. I think I've talked to perhaps a few of you. In the last 1 month or so, I was doing research on planning in Cape Verde. And I came across a chart in the first program of government program in 1978, I believe. And that chart had a map of Cape Verde from the basically hand-drawn chart from the 1860s to 1970s. And the chart basically had two variables: the number of deaths from malaria and the number of deaths from famine. You could see that in Cape Verde in 1860, about 40% of the population died from famine. And by, I think the last famine was about 1959, and that killed about 15 or 80% of the population. And so this is one of the things that drove the fight for independence. But thereafter, there was an agenda to change things for the better. Yes, people may not have gotten all the things that they wanted, but there was a systemic change over a period of time. And you can see it in the population. You can see it in the country today. that things are moving forward. And so we need a long-term agenda that is, and policymakers have to be consistent in trying to ensure that things are done and are done well. The need for coordination, and not just coordination vertical, but horizontal coordination among the different actors, and that the government can help promote and help support to facilitate the dialogue that is necessary and the collaboration that is necessary to move the innovation agenda forward. On the academia, at least for the academia, there is I think in the discussions, there was clear emphasis that it's important for demand-driven education and research. That is, academia should not simply do what academics do, but get engaged. As I said earlier on, that you need to engage with the communities and to do things that have impact on the population. There's a need also for interdisciplinarity. We need to move beyond our silos in academia, to begin to look beyond and work and collaborate across disciplines to address the big challenges of our time, which the continent is facing. Collaboration and learning, the idea to learn together, learning beyond boundaries, using ICTs, using technologies, and also linking with our diaspora, which is actually could be a critical resource for the continent as we move forward. And for the private sector, I think that what is also coming out is that there's a need for those who are successful, who have been successful already, people like the Herman, people like Bright Simmons, to see how do we nurture, how do we mentor the next group of people that are coming behind us to ensure that the ecosystem or the entrepreneurship is improving over time on the continent. There's a need for mentorship, there's a need for coaching. I think Tracy mentioned this also yesterday in some of the work that they're doing at the Brownson Center for Enterprise. It's critical that those who have done it pass the wisdom and the knowledge to those who are coming behind. The need for skills training in the businesses, in finance, in the legal sector is critical for the economies of African countries if we want to move forward. The importance of recognizing non-tech, non-R&D based innovation. I think I talked about this earlier on briefly. And critically also is the importance of brokerage, the across innovation cycle. How do we get the innovators, at least the young entrepreneurs and innovators, to get their ideas to market? How do they get access to finance? How do we ensure that the policy environment is good for them? How do we put in place the process to broker and to bring people together to resolve some of the challenges that entrepreneurs and innovators are facing on the continent? It's really bridging the gap to get ideas to market. And you need to promote value chain upgrading and integration. These are some of the highlights of the discussions from the different plenaries and the workshops. The issue of communities. And I think one of the things that we have to begin to do actively is to build communities and build awareness and capacity to be able to articulate the fact that there's a need for an innovative agenda on the continent. We need to transform our economies, and to transform our economies, we need to be innovative. And the individuals, as ourselves and in our communities, we can play a critical role in this process. The issue of creative approaches to knowledge appropriation and open innovation. I think this is links to the fact that we as individuals and as communities begin to seek out ways to appropriate what is happening and to get access to information so we can participate in what is happening in our countries and pushing the agenda of innovation forward. The issue of dissemination of information and research actively, and the need to support learning on the continent. In terms of what next, what we are proposing from the discussion what we could gather from the discussions are these key bullet points. For government, if you can, we would like to recommend that each African country have an explicit national system of innovation policies and strategies. We have to have an STI agenda for each country in Africa. Number two, we have to build institutions that understand and can help engage with entrepreneurs to help them prepare to participate in the emerging global market space. So this is one of the the issues that came up, especially in the session, I think the workshop on institutions that support innovation. And I think that was second day. The issue of government coming in as a facilitator, in a sense, providing the platform to engage the different communities and stakeholders to move the agenda forward. Those are the three key points that we found, at least from the discussion, and are critical that the governments can do today. We don't need a lot of resources to do this. We can begin to do this now, if we want to. And academia, to begin to do research that actually strengthen, also better understand the circles of innovation on the continent. And as I've said earlier on, there's a need for the African scholars to become more activist scholars, to have an agenda, to actually help promote an agenda for transformation of the continent. And they need to accelerate the pace and relevance of continental higher education for the new agenda that we have to develop for the continent. For the private sector, we have three key points. A, mentoring and incubating new businesses for those who are already successful. Second, help to broker the gaps, actually information brokerage. For those who are already in the private sector who are doing very well, they can help those who are coming behind by introducing them to us, to networks, to people with capacity, to money, to those who can provide financing. This is very critical. And also, we are proposing, at least from the discussions, we are proposing that there's a need to reward innovation. Those who are trying against all odds on the continent to innovate, we need to find ways to celebrate them. These are the people that we should be giving national honors to, and to be giving chieftaincy titles to, not those who are paying the chiefs some money to get the titles. So this is critical, because when you celebrate innovators, celebrate those who are doing things that could help advance the continent, others may want to emulate to do the same things. The issue of communities, I think one of the critical things I think that we found, at least in the discussions, is that we have to find a way to build coalitions for innovation on the continent. It's very difficult to find an NGO in Africa that is promoting innovation. But we can't find 1,000 NGOs that are trying to feed the poor. But the more sustainable way to feed the poor is to build their capacity, to create wealth, and to be innovative. And so for me, at least from based on the discussion we have had here, we have to find a way to create communities that are promoting innovation, advocating for innovation on the continent, and transformation of a transformation agenda. Also, we need to begin to get the individuals and all of us to participate as part of the community, to engage and push and advocate for change on the continent, to change for innovation. As the PM said on the first day, our development challenges demand a generation of African protagonists, from politics, from economics, from all sectors, to transform the continent. So we all have a role to play, whether it's at the AU, whether it's the government level, or at the private sector, or at the level of the citizen. We will have to find a way to lead from our own little corner. In our own little corner, myself and Mr. Brito, we've decided that we're going to move forward in our own little way. And as I've said earlier on, and as Lucy said, we're going to be moving forward with our own agenda. And one of our agenda is to create the K Fund. We have no money. We don't have money in the bank. When we launched the idea of running this summit, we had no penny. But somehow we were able to find the right network and the right people to support us to get the summit done. And we are hoping to do the same thing for the fund and the money for the accelerator. We are going to do this, and we're going to commit ourselves to doing this. We're going to commit to also to continue this summit. On Monday morning, I may be broke, but on Tuesday we'll start again to push forward to see how we can get the funding and the financing and the people and the volunteers to help us plan and begin the process for organizing the next summit. We also began to do case studies. This began as part of our effort to ensure that when we organize a summit like this, it's not just talk, but talk based on some evidence, based on what actually happened on the continent. Somehow I was able to convince about 10, we have 10 cases ongoing right now, which is being produced. Some have 2 authors, some have 1, some have 3 authors. We've been able to convince them to work without pay. Many of them are consultants, but hopefully we will raise the money to pay them. But the case studies will be ready, I think, in September. We have drafts of some of them already. And they are essentially looking at some of the interesting cases on the continent for innovation and trying to look at how did they emerge. What were the key challenges? What are the key constraints? Why are they not been able to get to the next level? What are the key success factors that drove them to where they are now? So we're looking at various cases. We're looking at Cape Verde on e-governance. We're looking at Kenya on mobile payments. We're looking at Rwanda on ed policy reform. We're looking at Nigeria and Nollywood. For the author of the Nigerian case is there. Olubenga Tokumbo is around. We're also looking at South Africa, Botswana, the issue of technology parks. Many African countries now are now beginning to invest in technology parks, technology clusters. What those who have done is what lessons from their experience. Erica and Neville is doing that case for us. Hopefully we'll be able to pay you guys when we get the funds, when we get financing, but don't worry, you're doing an important job for the continent. We expect to publish the book between September and December this year, and our commitment is to get a copy to everybody that is in this, that came in the summit. And hopefully we'll be able to get it available online for free for downloading. In terms of what we've committed to doing, rather than you asking me a question, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. It's been on screen for some time now. And the 3 questions are these. What are you prepared to do as individuals, organizations? What do you think someone else can do? And what can we commit to doing together to move the continent forward with regards to the subject of innovation and transformation? And I stop right here, and I want everybody to be raising up their hand to say this is what we are going to do. Any volunteers? Yes? Please.
Gwenga, thank you very much for the excellent job you've presented to us. A summary of which could not be done in a better way. Yes. Now, moving forward, many of my brothers and sisters who are in this room had difficulties in purchasing their tickets by using their credit cards because of what the international community, because of the roadblocks the international community has put there. Similarly, I spoke with you and with others about marketing some of the products that could be easily marketed on the web. But you have discovered that the giants that now control the search engines make such opportunities not available. So my challenge to all of us, beginning with IHABA taking the leadership, is that Africa needs its own competitive search engine and should begin to be developed right away. Thank you.
Sorry, Sandro, can I volunteer you to help me take notes? Yeah, thank you. Yes, at the back there, somebody. Manuel? Yes? Sorry, we need more microphones. Please, how much my own microphone, if possible.
Okay, thank you
yes.
For being fast, and I would like to thank you. I think it was a good resume of what happened here. However, I would like to add, where is institution and policies, I would like to add the good governance or governance by itself. I'm saying this just for avoid overlapping in terms of institution, and also I would like to add, don't be afraid to innovate and to transform. I think these during the section, in some of the section, someone was saying this: don't be afraid to innovate. Another issue that I would propose: there is a need to be resilience and to be persistent. Don't change every 5 years or every 3 years of the strategy in terms of the innovation and transformation. Another issue that I would, and the last one, is Africa needs a marketing. What is doing? I think that is linked to the communication and the link to strategy and for the marketing. What has been doing? What is doing? Africa is doing in terms of innovation and transformation. Thank you.
You want to speak? Yes, please. May I come to you? Microphones. Yes.
I'd like to say a huge thank you to Olubenga and to your entire team. I know it's been a huge amount of sacrifice and a huge amount of hard work to get so many of us here, but I think you're really going to reap the rewards in 2 years from now when you do the next one, because I, for one, am sold out on what you're doing. And it might not sound like a lot in terms of what I've got to contribute, but what most people know me will say about me is that I can hotwire the planet. And so I really want to leverage my network to ensure that in 2 years from now, we're going to get more people behind you, more people funding it, and more people engaged, so that you don't carry the whole burden, because I think it's something that should be shared between all of us. And then with regards to all the lessons that we've learned and some of the platforms that we've been building at the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship with regards to training, development, mentoring, I would love to be able to somehow plug that knowledge into your fund for entrepreneurs that go through the boot camp. And then also, I think I've had the privilege of seeing, 580 dynamic young entrepreneurs that could really benefit from that seed fund. So I would love to plug that into you and play a role in just sort of tracking the success of those stories so that we can continually tell those stories. So that's my commitment.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Again, I'm a professor of surgery at University of Arizona. I run a small NGO that is working in Cape Verde. I have learned incredible many things during these 3 days. I would ask that for the next summit, perhaps you should have more sessions on one of the biggest problems in this country, on this continent, which is health. Health and how to deliver health care using some innovative techniques and technologies, because you somehow all got into this money business, and we forgetting that in order to be able to make money, you have to be healthy to begin with. So I would urge you guys to, for the next summit, to really pay attention greatly to the healthcare system throughout the continent. And perhaps we will not be able to invent a new vaccine, but we will be able to invent new ways of doing, and one of them is Cape Verde's program in telemedicine and so on. So, and my commitment to these cases of successes, we will be able to write that case report for the telemedicine, very successful program in Cape Verde. Hopefully this will be applicable to other countries in the world, and I'll be very happy to help in this process. But thank you again, and congratulations on the great work that you guys did.
No, just on this, thank you very much. This first summit is on innovation, looking at different aspects of it. What we are thinking right now, and what we'll be engaging with many of you over the next few months, is that the next summit could be innovation around one specific topic. You are proposing healthcare. Others may want to propose food security or something else. We will sample and talk to people and then choose a topic, so that the next summit is not just innovation, but how do we innovate to resolve this great challenge facing the continent. And we will mobilize, hopefully, our academic community, the private sector, to see what ideas we can develop to address this specific issue. We are thinking about this. We've not decided yet, but we will be networking with all of you to see how we proceed. Yes. Please, Dr.
Yes. Actually, this gives me an opportunity to avenge a challenge that Jacob threw at me many, many years ago. When at African Futures, Jacob was actually going to write a book on Africa's problems, and we all got ready to contribute to the book until we were told that my generation was the one that ruined Africa, and so they didn't want our opinion in the book. So in vengeance, I will offer to have my publishing arm of the company assist in publishing the case studies.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and congratulations on the great summary you made of the event, clear and concise. We have already highlighted areas of collaboration between the summit and the GlobalX, which I represent here. We would like to see a little more researchers involved who have actually done concrete research with useful results to make diffusion of these results. And also we are writing in GlobalX thematic reports. These reports are oriented towards policymakers, and we would like that these reports are used to feed policy action and strategies in future summit, because, I mean, this is a result of deep research and broad research. And we also can figure out to do some joint publications, because we have very active publication activity within our network, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Moji, please.
Thanks, Gbenga, on okay.
No, speak, please speak.
Okay, thanks, Gbenga, on a fantastic event. You know, I commend you and your team for putting this together and doing a pretty good job. For us and what we're doing in Lagos around supporting innovation, one key challenge we found is finding information on innovation in Africa. So if we can begin to look at working on a central repository where we can get, wherever you are in the world, you can go and see if I want to find out about what's happening on innovation in any country in Africa, I can get that information. Because data is another issue I think we need to begin to look at, so we can tell our stories on African innovation from our end rather than from outside. But good job. So we're willing to support you on that project.
Thank you very much. Ngozi, microphone. Sorry, that.
Okay, so Gbenga and team, I want to say you all have done a fabulous job. I'm extremely, extremely impressed. What I'd like to volunteer is my time with mentoring and with all the any expertise I bring, whether from the telecom space or even some of the little experience I bring from the VC space with respect to helping you to develop the ecosystem. So once you're ready, I'll be happy to help.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really would like to thank the organizers just to support what everyone is saying. I think this is a great initiative. And as far as education is concerned, I don't know if someone else talk about this, but I think it's absolutely critical to see how we can utilize innovation and increase access to quality education in Africa. One of the areas is definitely mobile learning, how to unlock the potential of mobile learning. And I hope that in the future, summits, there will be specific sessions on education, and not only mobile learning, but other aspects of education as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Can you pass the phone to your right hand?
Thank you very much, and allow me also to congratulate all of you for a wonderful initiative and for a wonderful summit from UNESCO and from my division in particular, science policy and innovation policies. I would like to say that we are committed to continue to work with you. We have an innovation forum, a global innovation forum, taking place this November from 12 to the 14 in Daejeon City in South Korea. We are co-organizers, and we would like very much to maintain in contact with the organizers team to see how many of you want to come to Korea this year, and we can continue the conversation and really have an African innovation activity really strong in this next summit. Thank you very much.
Sorry, our time is limited. I will try to take about 3 more contributions, starting from there. But sorry, you only have 30 seconds each. So speak very fast, rapidly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
One of the issues that we've talked about a lot is how do we communicate? I just wanted to inform people that there is a Southern African Innovation Network, which is a social platform, but I think it's designed to encourage the sort of organic discussion between participants in the system, and I would just hope that some of you will look at that situation and see if you want to join that network and strengthen the whole of Southern Africa. Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
South African Innovation Network, SAINE.
Oui, Christian Bronac pour la francophonie, pour l'OIF. Donc nous lançons donc une initiative de réseau sur l'innovation dans l'espace francophone, donc pour l'Afrique. Nous allons présenter les résultats de vos excellents travaux lors d'un forum qui se passera à Dakar au mois de septembre. Et nous sommes prêts à mobiliser donc la communauté de langue française sur l'innovation pour l'Afrique.
Thank you very much. I would like to join the speakers before me in congratulating you and your team for the wonderful summit. I come from NEPAD, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, and it's very clear to us that the continent is hungry for information on science, technology, and innovation. In 2010, we produced the first ever African Innovation Outlook report. We are producing the next one this March. So please be on the lookout for the African Innovation Outlook report 2014, which talks about R&D and innovation activities on the continent. Thank you.
Sandro, please, rapid.
Very fast. Just to answer to your call in terms of question one, what I can do going forward. I would like to make myself available, more specific for the Cape Verdean contest, to work with the team in preparing a proposal for the government vis-à-vis the solutions and options that we see presented here, specifically in the incubators and how to work the VC capital.
Thank you. Sandro, just pass the microphone down. France, rapid.
I think it's never too much to thank everybody for coming to Cape Verde, but we're expecting more than coming to the African Innovation Summit, but also to innovate in Cape Verde. So everybody will be more than welcome to receive you, to work with us in our environment, to build innovation for Cape Verde and build innovation for Africa. Thank you so much.
Yes, please.
Boa tarde. Sou doutora Maria de Lourdes Spencer Lopes dos
My
Santos.
name is Dr. Maria de Lourdes Spencer, dos Santos de Cabo Verde. Before and foremost, I'd like to thank for these splendid days that and on my mind to learn a lot.
Também, nesses dias,
And also in these 3 days, talking to Engenheiro Brito, we talked about a word which called boldness.
Entretanto, essa palavra
In the
foi
meantime,
repetida várias vezes
that word
aqui.
was repeated several times here.
Dessa palavra,
And
penso
besides that word, I think
autoestima
that
e fé
self-esteem and
são
faith
necessárias
are
para
also
que
needed
realmente
so
o nosso
that,
continente
in fact, our continent
vá para a frente com a
can move
ideia
forward
da
with
inovação.
the idea of innovation.
Espero que
I
cada
hope
de nós
that each one of
assuma
us
plenamente o compromisso de
takes on
contribuir
the engagement to contribute to this initiative, and that our leaders
continuem
continue
a cada vez mais serem
to
iluminados para as boas
be
tomadas de
illuminated
decisão
to the good decision making.
Talvez
Maybe
com isso
with this
possamos esse sonho de
we
inovar
can
para a África
pursue
para
this
futuro
dream
melhor
of innovating
se
for
torne
Africa
realidade.
and that a
E
better
gostaria
future
de-
can
de,
become a reality. And I would
acabar a
like
minha
to
intervenção lembrando
finish my
o nosso
intervention
grande Paulino
reminding our great
Vieira
Pauline Vieira
com a Morna,
with
a me
Morna
acordar de sonhar. Thank you.
being awake and
Mr.
dreaming.
Brito, will you stop or is President here? Thank you very much, everybody. This is not the end of the process. The President is going to come in, I think, very soon to give the closing speech and to wish everybody well on going back. But when you do get back, we have to continue the communication. We, in our team, we are ready to collaborate with everybody here, and we need all of you to be part of our network in moving forward the agenda that we have all agreed to here. Those who have not been able to say what they want to do, let us know. Drop a line to us by email, Skype. We're ready to partner on any issue that we feel that is in line with what we want to do, which is Africa's transformation. Thank you very much. Thanks.